So my first meal when I came into Bengaluru was on this very terrace here. Had it not been for the first Gulf War of 1990, we wouldn't have been sitting here today. I thought we should pick dishes that's the theme of the restaurant. So I've ordered one North Indian dish, which is a Dahi ke Kebab. I've ordered the Arcot mutton chops, which is a South Indian dish. Akasaka mushrooms, something in the Oriental style. And the mushroom is nice and juicy, nice and moist, which is what I appreciate about that dish. So this was a dish that also kept very well when traveling. So I guess all that you did was take a few pieces of meat like this and perhaps some rice and draw from that masala in that meat to flavor the rice. Nice and moist and soft. Also bits of peanuts, spring onions, chilies. I think if you're a vegetarian, this is certainly a dish that you will enjoy. The soft noodles are soaking in that curry. Hi folks, and welcome to a new show on Food Lovers TV. This is going to be an interesting show. The show is going to be just you, me, the food, and of course the camera that's going to help me capture it all. So a few days ago, I put out this post on Instagram and also on X where I asked for your assistance in recommending dine-in restaurants from the 90s that are still around and relevant. Places that one used to go for special occasion dining back then. I didn't want to cover 5 stars in this category. I just wanted to look at freestanding restaurants. And to this, we got a bunch of responses. So we've gone through your many recommendations, researched it, and put together a list that will be the episodes of the first season of this new show. So I hope you've subscribed to Food Lovers TV already, because you wouldn't want to miss a single episode, especially if you're somebody who is in Bengaluru or has connections to Bengaluru. And definitely hit the bell icon to stay notified each time we drop an episode in this new show. Our first restaurant in this series is located in the heart of Bengaluru on the busy MG road. And back in the day, there wasn't the sort of traffic that you see these days. So a special outing definitely meant a lovely drive to the heart of town to one of the restaurants located in the area. And in keeping with this, our first restaurant, Ebony 2, is located in the landmark Barton Center on the bustling MG road. So my first meal when I came into Bengaluru was on this very terrace here. They have a larger terrace on the other side. And so my first meal when I arrived in Bengaluru for good in 1996 was on the Ebony terrace. So therefore I think this restaurant, in a manner of speaking, also holds a certain emotion for me. But what I found most interesting, and I learned this later, was this restaurant came up quite by accident. So the owners picked up this property on the 12th and the 13th floor of Barton Center as an investment opportunity. They were a plantation family and they thought this would be interesting to hold on and then sell at a profit. But then unfortunately for them and fortunately for us in Bengaluru, the Gulf War broke out in 2000, and so property prices went down. And so the idea with which they purchased the property initially, or they took the property initially, that went out of the window. And so, since they had this property, they said, okay, fine, let's build a hotel. And that's how the Ivory Towers, which is the hotel on the 12th and 13th floor of the Barton Center, came up. And then because they had the hotel and they had, I think, 15, 20 plus rooms, they also wanted a restaurant. And that's how Ebony came into being. So had it not been for the first Gulf War of 1990, we wouldn't have been sitting here today. Well, we have the menus here. There's a very extensive bar menu. And the interesting thing out here is that over a period of time, what began as Ebony has morphed into other outlets. As the restaurant started doing well and they started getting a reputation for food, they also opened a bar called 13th Floor. I think somewhere around the 2000 or early 2000s, and therefore they also have a very prominent bar menu. What's interesting also about the menu here is the manner in which it has evolved. So when they began this restaurant, they had a Parsi gentleman who was helping them with the restaurant. And so you had the Dhansaks, you had the Margi Farcha, you had the Patranu Machi and things like that. But over a period of time, I think with the family and with the people who worked here, the menu started evolving. And therefore, this is a menu that's far removed from what they began with, the smattering of Parsi, North Indian and some continental dishes. Today, you can literally find everything from Asian, tandoor to pan-Indian out here. This isn't a paid review or anything of that sort. I'm just here out of my own free volition just to showcase an interesting restaurant from the 90s of Bengaluru that is still very relevant today. You've got things like the Yakni Shorba that's rubbing shoulders with the Tom Kha soup. So also one of the earliest Thai food I think was available here in Ebony when they converted one of their terraces to a Thai terrace, I think one day of the week, and that's how Thai food also made its entrance here. Chinese as well, there's the somtams, the salads. I have a few favorites from the menu here, so I'm going to try and taste a few of them today. Definitely going to do the Arcot lamb chops. So there's the Ginza chili chicken, there's a Thai crispy chicken. I think we'll also do the kung pao. We'll also do a couple of vegetarian dishes. And then you have the main course, the curries, the kormas, the salan. Interestingly, along the way, the owners of this restaurant also opened another restaurant called Legend of Sikandar here at Garuda Mall. That restaurant ran for a while before shutting down. But what happened also as a result of that is you've got some very good Northwest frontier food even that made its way into the Ebony menu. The mutton Dhansak I'm definitely going to be having. This is a dish that I haven't had in a while. This is called the Mrs. Palekar's Saraswat Brahmin Prawn of the Fish Curry. So the menu here is also the sort that will be pleasing to multiple tastes, multiple interests. And I guess that's also the reason why the eatery is as popular as that. I thought we should pick dishes that's the theme of the restaurant. So I've ordered one North Indian dish, which is a Dahi ke Kebab. I've ordered the Arcot mutton chops, which is a South Indian dish. Akasaka mushrooms, something in the oriental style. I like the fact that it's got a nice, gentle sort of a crust. It's a hung curd and then I think there's some slivers of chili or probably some herbs. I'm also tasting in there the crunch of some nuts. I'm also tasting a bit of the heat that comes from the green chili. The slight touch of the tartness that you typically would taste in curd. Also slivers of onion that helps give it a bit of a crunch. What I'm a fan of is the texture of that casing on the outside. It's quite light, quite fragile, and on the inside it's nice, soft and creamy. I think what we need to do is try it with some of that chutney, that mint chutney. I think that will bring a different element. I found it a tad sour in its approach. And the freshness of the mint certainly helps correct some of that. I think next I want to go for that Arcot lamb chop. Of course, out here, that's a wind that knocked that Arcot lamb chop over. So out here, you also have to keep in mind that it's going to be a little windy. So ideally, if you don't want your food to get too cold in a hurry, you should be sitting inside. But I think the environment is nicer out here. It had been raining for the last few days, but today is nice and pleasant, just some cloud cover. And so it is a bit windy here on this terrace. So it's also the sort of climate that cools your food down in a hurry. But of course, unlike me, you're not going to be taking shots, B-rolls of your food. So I think you'll get to it before the food gets cold. On that note, some of that Arcot lamb chop. I love how that masala of that lamb chop is glistening. That piece of meat was moist and pink. The masala is warming without being too spicy. So I've also watched the making of this dish, and if I'm not mistaken, I think we have a recipe on Food Lover somewhere. If I find it, I will link it. And this is a dish that I'm told comes from the Mudaliar community of Tamil Nadu. And the dish has a few ingredients, the spice mix, plenty of yogurt that I'm also tasting a bit in its slight acidity there. And then the tuppa or the nehi. So this was a dish that also kept very well when traveling. So I guess all that you did was take a few pieces of meat like this and perhaps some rice and draw from that masala in that meat to flavor the rice. Next vegetarian dish, this is the Akasaka mushrooms. Some sort of a sauce there. I think the mushroom is stuffed and then deep fried. It's a bit spicy, it's a bit tangy. The crunch of the mushroom has surrendered to the weight of the sauce. But the mushrooms are nice and juicy. This is a sort of snack that you would reach for more and more. So now I'm also tasting a bit of the heat that's in the sauce. I don't know if there's some sriracha that goes into it, but I'm certainly tasting a bit of the heat that's penetrating my tongue. On the inside there's a bit of a mash or something, some vegetables perhaps, but the mushroom is nice and juicy, nice and moist, which is what I appreciate about that dish. Lovely, thank you. I want to get to that kung pao that Shankar has just served me, but I think before that a little more of that Akasaka mushroom. This is quite tasty. It's definitely the sort of dish that would make for a nice sharing plate if you have some company and if you're also in the mood for something a little spirited. And also what's nice here is the fact that you can order half portions, right? So everything that I've ordered here is half portions. So I've got 3 pieces of the Dahi kebab, I've got 2 of the lamb chops, I've got perhaps about 6 or 7 of the mushrooms and this bowl of the kung pao. So you can taste more dishes, which I think also is the idea of coming to a multi-cuisine restaurant, right? So the fact that you can taste different flavors. And now for that kung pao. The heat from the red chili. When it comes to a kung pao, you want it to be a little spicy, have a touch of sweet, touch of sour. And what I like is if the chicken is nice and moist. Of course, when it comes to Chinese style preparations, the chicken is first dusted with some cornstarch egg wash and then fried before it goes into the sauce, so as to preserve the integrity of that morsel. But sometimes that coating can get a little too hard. But out here, that coating is just enough to contain that chicken and hold on to that sauce, that kung pao sauce. Nice and moist and soft. Also bits of peanuts, spring onions, chilies. It's been a while since I've come to Ebony. And I'm so looking forward to this series because it's going to allow me to revisit some old favorites from the 90s. A lot has changed in the city. It's gotten busier, it's gotten more crowded. For somebody who perhaps time travels from the 90s to now, they may recognize very few things about Bengaluru now. But thankfully, we still have places like this that exist, that have also evolved with times, but I think have still in some manner held on to the good old flavors that made the city delicious in its appeal.
This is a Burmese Khaoswe vegetable.
Fantastic. The Khaoswe coconut-based curry, and of course you've got the soft noodles in that. Plenty of veggies there, some broccoli, mushroom, baby corn, some beans. The coconut milk is not too thick but still nice and rich. And then you got the hint of that lemongrass that you're tasting in that. A little warmth that comes perhaps from the ginger. I'm not sure if they use the galangal in this. And then a bit of the heat that comes from the red chili. Oh, that's delicious. The broth is delicious. But what you're supposed to do with the Khaoswe, take stock of all these accompaniments that you have around the bowl. Coriander, you've got some green chili there, fried onions, some fried garlic, bean sprouts, and crispy noodles. You want to introduce them to the Khaoswe. But what I want to do before that is just taste some of that soft noodle and the broth. I think if you're a vegetarian, this is certainly a dish that you will enjoy. The soft noodles are soaking in that curry. That's delicious. The noodles are soft, but not the sort that mash up very quickly the moment you bite on it. And the veggies have a nice crunch. I think on that note, let's introduce some of the elements to the Khaoswe. Beginning with some of the onions. Spring onion, fried onions. I think this is going to definitely make it nice and deep in its flavors. With some garlic, of course. Get some of the bean sprouts. Last but not the least, some of the crispy noodles. You want to make sure that you give it a nice mix. And perhaps for good measure, a bit of the garnish of the coriander, the kothmiri. Party of flavors and textures in the bowl, and I can't wait to transfer that to my mouth. flavor boost gets a whole new meaning there. The depth of flavor that comes courtesy the onions, the fried onions, the brista, and also that slight pungent flavor of that garlic. That's a broth that cradles all those influences rather well. And just when you feel it's getting to be a little more spicy, that's when the moist, fleshy crunch of the veggies help in soothing some of that warmth. So in fact, they have an Asian restaurant here called On the Edge. So when they were doing that restaurant, I think a lot of these Asian recipes came in. And what they've done is they serve you the same menu across all three places. So whether you're having a drink at the bar or whether you're just on the Asian side of things, which is a little more cozier. So wherever you sit, you have the benefit of ordering from the same menu. So if you want a kakuri kebab, even if you're sitting in ASEAN On the Edge, I think you will find it there. Well, our main course is here. So we've got the Dhansak. This is a dish that's been around on the menu right from the day that they opened first in 1993. And I'm told that the masala for this dish, they source it from a Parsi family, and it's the lady of the house who has been making and supplying this Dhansak masala to them for the last 30 years. And then of course we've got two other dishes. The Dilliwala Tawa Paneer, loaded in a tomato gravy. Loads of onions that I see in that, also some adrak. We have a chicken dish that comes from the south, and this is the Munion's pepper chicken. This chicken dish is dark in its colors and I'm sure also in its peppery flavors. It's a bit tangy from the tomato. Also perhaps some amchur that goes into it, or perhaps some anardana. Touch of that sourness that is a little more deeper than what will come from tomatoes. And I'm biting into the crunch of the onions, the bell pepper. I wish my roti was hotter. That paneer seems to be the real deal, not the analog paneer that we keep hearing about. Nice and creamy, has a bit of a tug. Not the sort that dissolves right away in your mouth, but I guess it has that sort of strength that is required to carry that kadai masala of sorts. So this is a gravy that is slightly on the sourish sweet side. So if that's what you like, you can certainly order it. Also thick in the body that comes from the onions and the tomato. And I think I just bit into a piece of clove or cinnamon there. I think the cinnamon it was. Perhaps goes into the making of this dish right at the beginning when that oil is scented with the whole spices. Let's make tracks now for that Munion pepper chicken. Nice thick gushi of the onions. Loads of pepper that I'm sure goes into this. Definitely the warmth of the pepper, but that's balanced well with the onions. It's a bit grainy in its flavor notes and the sort that perhaps needs to be mopped up with some bread. The chicken is a bit stringy, at least to the touch. In my opinion, it hasn't really held on to the flavor of that warming pepper gussi. On the inside, the chicken is a bit moistened, perhaps a bit watery. Not resonating in the flavor that I expected to find. Between the two, I enjoyed the paneer much more. I think the dish was let down by the texture of the chicken. Yeah, just give me one of that kofta. Yeah. The dal, the lentils, which is what forms a base for that mutton gravy, has cooled down a bit. When it came, it was hot, but by the time I finished that roti and the paneer, I'm not sure if you're getting some of the sound of some drilling that's happening somewhere in the neighborhood. But if you do, apologies for the same. But notwithstanding the fact that it has cooled down, that dal is quite weighty in its texture on the tongue with the flavor of the Parsi Dhansak masala, and is a sort that does well to flavor that rice. I think it is sauteed with some onions, with some sugar to give it that light caramelized sort of a look. Now for some of that mutton, there's also a bit of fat that's holding on to the meat. Unlike the chicken, this meat has soaked in the flavor of that Dhansak gravy. So earlier there were a bunch of other Parsi dishes too. So I remember eating the margina farcha, the sali margi with the straw potatoes. I'm told they don't get enough customers asking for it now, and therefore they've removed it. I think what will help here is some of that kachumbar. just to liven that plate a bit with its crunch. I think there's also slivers of green chili that goes into it. So I also bring in an added element of heat. And the tang of the lime. But if you haven't had a Dhansak before, the flavors are the sort that are quite gentle. So don't expect too much by way of a very spirited or a very punchy masala. Because that's not what a Dhansak is about. I think a Dhansak mimics the personality of the Parsis. They're very gentle folks for the most part. With all due respect. I think some more of the rice. There's also a bit of the depth of flavor that comes from the onions that I'm tasting in that Dhansak curry. Flavorful. The keema mince ball. This is a Parsi version of the kaima unde. There's some flavor that I'm tasting in that I can't quite identify. Is it the flavor in the breading that goes into bringing that mutton mince together? I'm not sure. Feels a little different. I'm a fan of the rice and the curry. And of course also the mutton. After all these dishes, I don't think I should be having dessert, but I want you to get a sense of what dessert here is like. Small dessert menu, Ebony and Ivory, which is a white and dark chocolate ganache. They have a tres leches, a chocolate moksha. And then I spotted the Taptim Krob. That's what I'm going to have. The Taptim Krob. Thank you. A Thai dessert. So you've got some lychees in there. The pink things that you see here is actually the water chestnut, and the water chestnut typically goes through a process where it's soaked in some roux afza, etc., and that's what gives it that bright red ruby sort of a color. Though there's some dragon fruit I think that goes into this as well. And the dessert's nice and chilled. Certainly a dish that's quite nice. Very refreshing. All the fruit is drenched in that coconut milk. And I think the dragon fruit, I've never had a dragon fruit in a Taptim Krob before, but I think it gives it a nice texture with those tiny black seeds. And that water chestnut just has a soft, slightly dense sort of a crunch. Perhaps as lychees come out of a can, since we're not in lychee season. Certainly is a good end to our first episode of the review here at Ebony. Thank you very much. So that's it for the review. I enjoyed my afternoon here at Ebony and I hope you did with me too. If you're new to the channel and haven't subscribed yet, please do subscribe and hit the bell notification to be in the loop every time we drop a new episode. And if you've been here with us for a while and haven't subscribed and hit the bell notification yet, well, now is the time to do so. Plenty more coming up in this series and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.